The Saudi-led campaign against the poorest country in the Middle East is still raging on, more than 5 years after its commencement. The ensuing humanitarian crisis, the worst in recent history, has grossly distorted life on Yemeni soil. With pounded infrastructure and a moribund economy, Yemen, which once used to be referred to as Arabia Felix or Fortunate Arabia, is now hardly a livable place, especially for young kids who, in the absence of basic necessities, are battling life and death. Whereas Saudi Arabia and its child-killing accomplices are under fire for igniting the war in Yemen, in a shocking move, UNICEF, or the United Nations Children's Fund, has recently lauded Riyadh for its humanitarian role in the war-torn country.
الحادث اللي حدث مؤلم جدا لجميع السعوديين.
The black comedy began with a thank you letter from UNICEF Executive Director Harrietta Fore, in which she hailed the Saudi kingdom for its generous support it had promised to give. This promised support, according to the letter, would help UNICEF in aiding Yemeni children and their families. The move came a few months after the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres decided to remove the Saudi-led coalition from the body's list of shame, a list of groups that failed to adhere to measures aimed at ensuring the safety of children in armed conflict. Just 1 day after the move, coalition airstrikes killed 13 people, including 4 children in the northern Yemeni province of Sada. Back then, Joe Becker of Human Rights Watch said, Guterres is adding a new level of shame to his list of shame by removing the Saudi-led coalition and ignoring the UN's own evidence of continued grave violations against children.
Today is Yemen, tomorrow is anybody else, unless the world stands up and says, no, enough is enough. And as the UN has proved itself to be incapable of upholding the rights of the people that it claims to be upholding, or to preventing the disasters that it claims to be wanting to prevent, then it is high time that people of the world got together and set up an alternative forum.
The UN Secretary General's message was clear. Rich, generous actors could kill children and literally get away with murder.
Removing the Saudi-led coalition from the blacklist is a signal to these organizations to allow this kind of impunity to continue, and that it isn't a problem for the UN, for countries like Saudi Arabia to breach human rights both internally and externally and go and murder the children of Yemen, starve millions of people in Yemen. No problem, it's fine, you know, as long as they continue to pay.
In 2019 alone, more than 1,400 children were maimed or killed as a result of the Saudi-led campaign. And almost 1 in 3 of the civilians killed or maimed in the armed violence in the first half of 2020 were children.
According to the Ministry of Health in Sana'a, up to 1,000 people in Yemen die per day. That includes the children, who are dying at the rate of 1 child every 10 minutes under the age of 5. And now if we take the figures to include the airstrikes and many other Saudi coalition aggression-related deaths in Yemen, it's up to 1,000 people per day in Yemen. That is really gobsmacking. Think about it. The numbers are adding up. If that isn't systematic extermination of a people, then what it is, I don't know.
Children are not being killed by bombs and bullets alone. A huge number of them are dying of war-induced famine and disease. According to one of the latest UNICEF reports, the number of malnourished children in the country could reach 2.4 million, a 20% increase by the end of the year. 6,600 children under the age of 5 could also die from preventable causes, and almost 9.58 million children in Yemen do not have sufficient access to safe water, sanitation, or hygiene. And this is Saudi-friendly UNICEF reporting. Critics say these are just conservative estimates. Whatever the real numbers may be, the fact is these children are bearing the brunt of the brutal war and mindless violence. And that is not the end of their sad story. As a lost generation, the war has robbed them of their childhood. In late September, the UN group of eminent experts issued a disturbing report about exploiting and abusing children in the war. The group documented the cases of at least 259 boys between the ages of 12 and 17 who were recruited between May 2016 and January 2020. The boys were reportedly moved to Saudi Arabia for training and then returned to fight against Ansarullah. According to family members of the abducted boys, the recruiters offered them salaries of $5,000 to $16,000 to entice them. Under such conditions, education is not a top priority. According to the UN reports, 2 out of 7 million Yemeni children don't go to school, and more than 2,500 schools across the country have been put out of commission, 2/3 of them damaged in attacks.
Over 2,000 schools were targeted directly by the Saudi-led coalition. And for a country that has committed these crimes, which has been well documented and has actually been referred to as well in the experts' report, it is actually very, very deplorable and regrettable that an organization such as UNICEF, that is actually supposed to be concerned for the welfare of children, praises the murderer of the children of Yemen. It's shameful, to say the least.
Last but not least, the war has had a devastating impact on the mental health of Yemeni children, according to Save the Children Fund. Most of the children polled in the fund's major survey said they suffer from sadness and depression, always afraid and always grieving, and never feel safe when alone.
The impunity in relation to Yemen for the past 6 years has revealed untold amount of hypocrisy that has been played on the world for many, many years. 70 years or so in the existence of the UN. It's been making people believe that there is such a thing as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are upheld, blah, blah, blah. That's not true. In reality, human rights are not upheld. And the UN has been a complete and utter and abject failure. And the Yemen crisis has actually exposed all of that dirty secrets of the UN.
The saddest part of the story is that many international bodies like UNICEF, which are supposed to care for children across the globe, do not even dare to condemn Saudi Arabia and its allies for what they have done to Yemeni children over the course of the last 5 years. In fact, Saudi Arabia and its ilk have been pulling the strings at UNICEF and many other international bodies by promising to give them money, or as in most cases, to threaten to cut off their financial support. Children always need protection, and in wartime, uncompromising protection.